Truly local radio, live from the heart of Swansea. 102.1 Swansea Local Radio.
A huge welcome. Thank you very, very much indeed to Swansea's very own Bonnie Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Oh, are you often back in Swansea?
Quite often, yeah. I do spend a lot of time in Europe, as you know.
Dad was a miner. Mum was into opera.
My mother was a fantastic opera singer, but not professional. But she was just amazing, you know. It was inevitable that a lot of us would become singers because there was always music in the house, you know.
What kind of stuff were you listening to back then when you were growing up?
My favourite music then was like Janis Joplin, Tina Turner, Wilson Pickett. Always big voices I liked, you know. Like I did like a lot of soul music as well, mind, you know, like all the Motown stuff. I loved that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I really went for more the solo artists like Joe Cocker and people like that, you know, that they were my favourites.
Have you ever, you know, because you've had such an extraordinary career and for so long, do you ever manage to meet any of the people you used to listen to when you were a girl?
Oh, yeah. I've met quite a few people, actually, and sang with quite a few people that, like, for instance, the first band I went to see was like Frankie Miller. And I ended up recording a duet with him in New York. And that was incredible to work with Jim Steinman, you know, who recorded everything for Meatloaf.
Yeah.
And to work with Frankie, one of the best singers ever, I think, you know. But no, I met Paul McCartney loads of times.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, have there been moments when you thought, oh my goodness, look who I'm standing next to? Do you ever is the girl from Skewing ever pinching herself?
Yeah. More than once a day, I tell you. I tell you about the first time I ever met Paul McCartney was in Rack Studios in London, and I had "It's a Heartache" then was a big hit record, you know, and me and Paul McCartney were like high in the charts. I was number 3, and he was number 1 with Muller Kintyre. And
these were the days when records used to sell 100, 200, 250,000, not like today.
God, 36,000 copies a day I was selling. You know, lucky if they sell that now to have a gold disc.
Yes.
36,000 copies a day I was selling. Anyway, so I was in the studio and the girl on reception said to me, Paul McCartney's in today, she said. I said, oh my God! I used to have a poster of him, you know, behind my bed, you know, and I used to kiss him every night, you know. And she said, go and see him. She said, he won't mind. He's a hell of a nice guy. I said, oh no, I couldn't do that, you know. And so this went on now for the whole week, and she said, he's still here. She said, he won't mind. I said, no, I can't, you know. But I used to go in and out of the kitchen hoping I'd bump into him, you know what I mean? But this particular day, she must have told him, you know, that I was dying to meet him, but didn't like to bother him, you know. And I was in the studio by the piano, and we were getting some keys for some songs, and in walks Paul McCartney. He said, hello, what are you up to then? I said, oh my God, you know, I was like a kid, you know. First thing I did was get on the phone to my mother on it and say, hey, Mum, what do you think about who? I said, you'd never guess who I just met. Oh, I don't know, she said, but he'll never be as nice as Robert. And she said, that's my husband, you know. I said, Paul McCartney. Oh, but you'll never meet another boy like Robert.
Fabulous story. We're going to be listening to some of your favourites as well, as well as listening to your huge hits. This first one is from Guns N' Roses. That's Guns N' Roses, a favourite tune of our special guest today on the station, Swansea's very own Bonnie Tyler. You were just telling us stories, just when we listened to that record, about the people that you meet in the business on the way up and the very Welsh way in which you regard them and respect them.
Well, I think that's why I've been in the business for such a long time and still getting a lot of work, you know, because I was brought up to have respect for people, and on the way up, you know, never forget who you are, because when you come down, because you do go up and down, you know, and, you know, it's a good journey. It's not all about being in the charts, you know. I enjoy singing whether I'm in the charts or not, you know. So the down times are much easier when you've respected people on the way up, because they give you a lot of work, you know, TVs and things like that. And people don't forget you, if you respect them. I think.
The whole way in which you have become a phenomenon on the continent, in Germany in particular. We're always hearing about success in Germany and how huge you are. Are you doing lots of live stuff there as well?
Always. I got a band. I got a great band. I got some great musicians. I've been with them now for like 15 years. And, every time a tour comes up, they're there for me, I do a lot of summer festivals, outside festivals. I sing to about 80,000 people, And I did Swansea Festival I think it was about 8 years ago. I really enjoyed doing that. I'd love to do it again with my band, new material and everything now, We still do a lot of the old songs that people want to hear that. But I've been really lucky in France this year, I had a #1 record for 12 weeks, a duet version. Yes, I sing in French and English. And
that's posh.
It was #1 for 12 weeks. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you did that with Karine Anton?
Yeah, a young girl called Karine Anton, yeah.
How did that come about then?
It was her mother's favourite song, right? And she wanted to make a recording of it. And her manager got in touch with me to see if I would be interested in doing a duet with her. And my first reaction was, no way, you know what I mean? I'm not going to do a duet with somebody that, this is my ace card, total eclipse of the heart. And I thought, well, send me something of her voice for me to listen to, So I listened to it, her singing it in French. And it just really got to me, It sounded fantastic in French.
Was this girl an established singer?
She's a famous actress.
Right.
And not famous like Catherine, do you know what I mean? She's an actress more than a singer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I said, oh, okay, I'll have a go at this, So I went over to France and we met up. We got on like a house on fire. And then the next day we went into the studio and we recorded the song within 2.5 hours. So the record company called down, they listened to it and they said, oh my God, this is a smash, So they were going to release it in January. But the radio stations were given, like you're given...
promo copies.
Promo copies. And they loved it so much, they played it right from the start. But people were going into the shops and asking to buy it. But it wasn't in the shops because it hadn't been released yet. So they released it then on the 22nd of last December. And, well, the first week it went in at 25 and then it went up to #1 and stayed there for like 3 months.
And you just wanted a quiet life and it all started again.
It was great. Anyway, my husband's gone to get a copy of that now because I left it at home. So you can listen to that later if anybody's interested.
We're definitely going to play that.
Yeah, because it is French and English. And, in this country we don't play enough foreign languages, which is strange, really, because in other countries they play like 60-40. Like in French, 60% is French, 40% is in English. And they give everybody a chance, which is great.
Let's go way, way back now to the beginning. You don't want me to play My Honeycomb. So
Well,
that was your first actual record.
yeah.
And then straight after that, there was the smash Lost in France.
The reason why I say it's not worth playing My Honeycomb is because, I don't think anybody has ever heard it, And then they released Lost in France afterwards, and it became an international hit then. It went to #9. And since then, my feet haven't touched the ground.
You were doing something with Ronnie Scott.
Ronnie Scott is the guy that wrote, do you remember For the Casuals, Jessamine?
Yes.
He wrote that. He wrote songs for Lulu, I'm a Tiger, and things like that.
Good pedigree then.
Yeah. Anyway, he wrote Lost in France, and it's a heartache and for me. And actually, it was Roger Bell that heard me singing in the Townsman in the early 70s. I started singing there in 1969.
So we will have listeners to the station that will remember the Townsman.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people got married there, aren't you?
I was a Dixie. I was in Bobby Wayne and the Dixies. The name, innit? Anyway, I worked with Ronnie Williams, another local guy, my first manager, and great experience, you know what I mean? Thrown in completely in the deep end. I was working like 6 nights a week, every week. And while I was working there, Roger Bell, a talent scout, who was working for Chapel Music in London at the time, came down because he'd been told about the boy singing in the band upstairs. So he came down to listen to him. But luckily for me, he walked in on the wrong floor and heard me singing Nutbush City Limits by Tina Turner. And he was knocked out. So
well, hang on, let me get this. This is an exclusive, I think. What you're telling me is that because a fella got the wrong floor in a club, your career happened.
Yes, that's exactly right. He heard me singing and went back to London and told Ronnie Scott about me. And Ronnie asked me to go up to London, and I made some memos. And one of them was Lost in France.
So what happened to the fella upstairs he actually came to see?
Do you know what? He's a great singer as well. His name is Vic Oakley. Loads of people will remember him. He had a terrific voice. He still has. He's still doing it. He was like all over Germany in his younger days, you know, with a band. Strangely enough, when I was a young kid, he used to live opposite me in the same street in Skewin. And it's funny that, you know, it ended up that way.
It's a heartache. A personal memory for me, I remember when I was listening to the Nobman's radio show on Radio 1, you did a special recording of that for him.
It's a heartache. He kept saying I was talking about heartaches. Yeah, he was good to me, Noel Edmonds. I like him very much. Yeah.
We've got a lot of people who love your music, and they came to your music via the rock route of Jim Steinman. Now, Jim Steinman, Bonnie Tyler, at first, what would this guy want to be doing with a Welsh singer? How did that connection happen?
All my fault, which I'm glad about. I love Bat Out of Hell, right? When I heard that song, when I seen him on the Old Grey Whistle Test doing that song, I said, I would love a song like that. That's my kind of song, you know, really something to really sing, you know. And I told my manager at the time that, you know, oh, God, it would be a dream to work with the writer and producer of this record. So he said, well, we'll ask.
And we're talking about Meatloaf's recording.
Yeah, Jim Steinman, you know. And I thought, well, you know, yeah, ask. What can he say? Yes or no, innit? You know, go for the top and then go to the next rung on the ladder, you know what I mean? So we asked him, and as you say, you know, he's probably going to think, well, you know, what me and Bonnie Tyler got in common, you know? But he asked us to send over some of my albums, so I sent them over. He wasn't impressed with the albums, but he was very impressed with the voice. He didn't particularly like the songs, but he knew that I had something that he could bring out.
You were an instrument he could use then in his orchestrations. Yeah.
So he asked me to go over to America to meet him. So I went to meet him.
How excited were you about that?
In New York. Oh, I was scared stiff. I was. But anyway, I went, and he lived in this incredible apartment next to Dustin Hoffman and overlooking the Central Park, you know. And we go in there, and that was weird in itself, mind, because we got out of the security, you know, on the doors and things like that. Then we go up in the lift. I never forget, E.T. was in the cinema at the time, right? And do you remember the part with the M&Ms in E.T., the sweets, you know, those coloured sweets?
Yeah.
So anyway, we get on the top floor now. And we get out, and there's this row of M&Ms, and it's going in the direction that we got to go in, you know, to Jim's apartment. And we think, oh, this is a bit strange. Oh, it's a bit strange, do you know what I mean? So anyway, we got to the door, and there was a row of us door ledge as well. And so I thought, it's strange. And anyway, we rang the bell, and this thing opened the door. You know, like,
a thing?
What is it? It or thing in the Addams family with all that hair, you know? All over the face. It is it. This is the door and I think, yeah, you know. So anyway, I was with my manager anyway. So we go in. He says, "Come in." So anyway, funny. But he played me a lot of songs and decided in the end, basically, that yes, he did like my voice and he liked the direction that I wanted to go in. 3 weeks later, he called me back, and he played me the most incredible song. And he gave me the lyrics while he played it on the piano. And Rory Dodd, who sings the turnarounds with me, sang it so that, you know, because he reads music and everything. I don't read music. But he sang it so that I'd get the gist of the song. And I was just crying. It was so beautiful, you know. And I couldn't believe